Boom. All right, ladies and gentlemen, most entrepreneurs are stuck in their business. But today we're going to talk about how we can start working on our business. Let's get this one started. Here we go.
Shut up and sit down.
Look, a business can give you everything you want in life: prestige, wealth, freedom. It can also take everything away from you. This show is for those who are willing to take that risk. These are the real life stories of entrepreneurs. But before we start, I have one small favor to ask. Please leave a comment. It can be advice, critiques, tips, feedback, or share this with someone because your engagement is the most valuable and most powerful form of social currency. So thank you, and welcome to another episode of Business Bros. Right, Business Bros. Now, she's on a mission to transform the way entrepreneurs lead by shifting the focus from grinding in the business to growing beyond it. A coach, connector, and change maker, she's empowered founders to operate at their highest level. So please welcome the visionary behind the Believe Crew, Jaime White. Let's get the party started. All right, Jaime, welcome to the program.
This is great. This is so much fun. I've never had one of those intros, so thank you.
Now you have it pre-recorded, and it'll wake you up every morning at 5 a.m. and have all the fire you need to get going.
That's
all
great.
Right, let's jump into this thing. First of all, tell me a little bit about Believe Crew. How'd you get this thing started? What got you into the entrepreneurial space?
Well, first of all, I started in the entrepreneurial space as a kid because I grew up in the entrepreneurial world. I joke that I'm bilingual and I don't speak Spanish, even though we live in Mexico, because I speak entrepreneur, but I actually speak a little, I guess you could say almost a Creole version or something like that, because slang version, because it's family business. So I started in the family business, and then there was just this calling on my heart that had been there for a long time. And I thought I could maybe do both, stay in the family business and create something else. But it was time. It was time to let go of one thing and move into the next.
So were you the serial entrepreneur? Like you're already in it. You started, at birth being part of a business family, but then when you kind of ventured off on your own, did you kind of dabble in different things, or you just went one thing, you knew exactly what you were going to do and been doing it since?
It's interesting you say that, because my dad is what I would call the serial entrepreneur. And so for 20 plus years, I supported him and his visions. And yes, I got to start my own things along the way, and I got to be, a supportive visionary, you could say, but I didn't even see myself fully as an entrepreneur. I saw myself as supporting entrepreneurs. So in a way, Believe Crew was sort of an extension of what I'd been doing. Even though I became the visionary entrepreneur, it was still supporting entrepreneurs. Like it almost didn't change.
No, and if you've ever been around the entrepreneurial space, there's a lot of people who go through that same path where they have an idea, it sounds really cool, they realize how much work it actually is, then they got some struggles, and so they find the next cool idea, and they go into that same pit of despair and coming out, doing it over and over and over again. One of my mentors says something that I think is pretty interesting when he asks entrepreneurs about, how long have you been in business? And people say something like, I don't know, 5 years. He's like, have you been in business for 5 years, or you just been repeating the same year of business 5 times? Because there's a big difference between the two, right? So, with dad having, serial entrepreneurs, you diving into this thing, supporting entrepreneurs, tell me about Believe Crew. How did that manifest?
Well, partially because in the process, my mom died. So here I am, supporting them and supporting the businesses that they created while my mom is, trying to find a cure for her cancer. And she didn't find it, but there was something that she said towards the end. And she said, Jaime, if this book that I read is right, everything that I've done is wrong. And she said, and I was a young 24-year-old mom with 2 kids trying to help out in the business, trying to help out wherever I could. And I was just like, Mom, just what is it? Just tell me, let's just do it, And she's like, well, I have to change my mind. And they said that it takes at least 6 months. And I don't even know that I have 6 months to live. And so in the end, that sat with me long enough that I was like, I'm going to go figure out what this is.
So what changed your mind? What was the mind shift that had to happen that maybe you're not the only one going through it? Maybe we all have to make that kind of mind shift to have that successful business.
One of the things that I learned that people don't talk about, they call it a midlife crisis, but literally it's in our design, usually between ages 38 and 44, to go through some type of a, I don't know if you want to call it an awakening, a roller coaster. For me, it was, I felt like a little dinghy in the ocean.
Mm,
And apparently that's normal. Again, I don't know about you, but growing up, I just heard it referred to as a midlife crisis. And so when you
same.
look at the time frame, around 38 is when we're all kind of like, I don't know if I like this anymore. I don't know if there's some, maybe it's not exactly that age, but really close. And so I didn't know. I was in the middle of that myself, and I just knew that I didn't want to end up with cancer. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna go figure out what what it is that she might have been finding that we didn't know. And so we started researching the subconscious mind. And at the same time, we started researching energy and how it works in the body and becoming more intuitive and getting into the coaching world at the same time as the energy healing world. And so we actually combined the two in Believe Crew and create what we call soul care. But it was sort of birthed by accident because we were just looking. We were looking for something different.
I used to listen to an audio every day by Earl Nightingale called The Strangest Secret. It's about, I don't want to say like 20 minutes, 20, 30 minutes. And in it, he talks about, one of the things he says is if you talk to a 25-year-old person, they have all the ambition in the world and they're going to conquer everything. You talk to that same person at 65 and, things happened along the way. And all of a sudden there's a small population that actually reaches that end part. And I think, and what he says is, oftentimes what happens is a lot of people conform. And I think that's kind of that midlife crisis thing that you're talking about, because at a certain point, you've been working your butt off. I know I did, like day after day, grinding and being busy, not necessarily productive all the time, but being busy all the time. And then you get to a certain age and you're kind of comfortable in life and you realize, for me, for example, I can start a business tomorrow. The question now that I'm asking myself that I wouldn't have asked when I was 20 is, do I really want to do all that? Do I really want to go into that next phase again? Because now I know what it takes to do it. And so I'm wondering, have I conformed? Have I just said, you know what? I don't want to work that hard. I'm comfortable where I'm at. Or do I keep going? I think that's kind of that quandary, that
Mhm.
that we kind of have, because we still need purpose. We still need to move forward. But I know there's a lot of people who still need that revenue from their business, but they're still stuck in the busy, not productive mindset. How do you help them kind of break that?
Yeah. Well, just to speak to a little bit of what you were saying, recently I went and jumped off a cliff. I have 6 boys, and so cliff jumping has
That
always been
sounds
a part of
scary.
my life. The 6 boys part?
Well, all of it right there. I don't know what's scarier, 6 boys or
The
jumping off
cliff
a
jumping.
cliff. I mean, they're both terrifying, but
Yeah.
you seem to be managing pretty well.
Well, I saw them doing it for so long that I was, and everyone, when I would post the pictures, everyone would go say, "Where are you?" I was like, why do I have to jump just because everyone else is jumping? But eventually I like, okay, I'm going to conquer my fear of heights. I'm going to do this. And so I did it. And what I found is that period between leaving what's comfortable and going to the next thing, I mean, there's such a small difference, actually, 2 foot by maybe 15 feet
Yeah.
between the two places. But that middle section is so uncomfortable that leaving where we are is just painful. And we did that and we experienced that when we moved to Mexico, leaving everything that was comfortable, leaving and letting go of everything that we had built up and known for 20 some years. But what I found is that I find a new version of me and I become a new version of me. So we're living, I'm sort of the example of what can happen when we do let go. People are looking at me now and they're like, "You look younger." Like, "What are you doing?" Well, I'm living in my design. I'm living what I'm supposed to be doing instead of, just sort of the status quo. And I was starting to give into the status quo, you could say, or what was comfortable. And I even said to my kids, like, if I leave the family business, this is going to change our life. And my kids were like, "We don't want, why are you staying?" And I was like, I'm staying for you so that we can have this comfortable life. And
Yeah.
they're like, "We don't want that." So I just think there's a lot of, we do stuff for other people. We do stuff thinking we're doing it for other people without even realizing we're doing it for other people. So the comfortable, I don't know. I'm with you. I think there's a chance that some of the things that we're choosing are because it's comfortable. I thought my
Yeah.
bed in Wisconsin was comfortable and I didn't want to leave.
Well, I think it's the fear of the unknown, right? We don't know what's going to happen. First of all, I'm never going to jump off a cliff. That's not my forte. I understand the thrill and all, but there, what I do remember as a kid, going to the community pools, and they had the three different heights on the diving boards. And as a kid, you're like, I'm never going to jump off the top. And then you get a little bit older, you go to the edge at the top diving board, and I remember standing there looking down and just thinking, one more step, like just the one more step, and then it's out of your control. At that point, you're all in. There's no way you can go back. And I feel, in my 20s and early 30s, when I would start a business, that's the MO that I was feeling like, just go. Like, once you start, there's no going back. You've already started. Now the only way to go is forward. And you're doing that with things in your life as well. As a coach, how do you help people kind of take that leap? The fear kicks in, that fear of the unknown. I don't know what's going to happen. I can have a million questions as to what and suffer from paralysis of analysis. How do you get me to take that leap?
So what you're talking about is exactly what I found happening with clients, because I'm actually really good at helping people see the vision of what's possible, their dream, and really uncovering the biggest dream that they can imagine for themselves. But then what was happening is fears, limiting
Mm-hmm.
beliefs, everything gets in the way. It was almost like literally people would self-destruct. And so the reason that we created Believe Crew the way that we did is so that other people can help with the limiting beliefs. And really what it comes down to is feeling it in the body, owning it, recognizing those fears and acknowledging them, even if we don't name them exactly in the beginning. Like, as we become more vulnerable, then we can let go of them. And I found that it's something that I can do. Like, I learned to do it, but I found that it's not my gift. It's those that we hire in Believe Crew, because I was like, we need a team of people to keep up to keep up with my can you still hear me? It's
Yeah,
saying
I can
like
hear you. Yeah.
my headset said PC disconnected. So
Oh, no, no,
um
no. I can hear you.
I can hear you too. So anyway, the clients that I was working with, I was realizing, like, I can't keep up with all of the limiting beliefs that we have that are holding us back as entrepreneurs from doing our best work. Like, I got to create a team to support this.
I compare it to like scary movies. My wife never liked to watch scary movies. She said they always freaked her out. And I noticed that when we would watch a scary movie, she would always close her eyes before, those scenes happen. And I told her one day, I was like, the reason why those things freak you out is because you never open your eyes to see what actually happens. And because you close your eyes during those scenes, you hear it, the suspense is there, and your mind creates this imaginary thing that's much more terrifying than the actual image that's in front of you. I feel like when you talk about those fears and the imposter syndrome and all that stuff, if we just took the leap, it's never as bad as our mind makes it out to be. Our mind is way more powerful and way more creative, and will take control if you let it, and prevent you from taking those steps. So tell me about Believe Crew. How do you help people kind of make that transformation? What kind of mindset do you have to shift? What kind of steps do you take with them? What can we expect when we go with Believe Crew?
So one of the things that we love to do is get started on getting clear on what you want, but also getting clear on what your gifts are. So how are your gifts aligned with that roadmap, that those desires that are really inside of you? And we do use different tools like human design and gene keys to help with that. But then after that, when you get clear on what you want and we turn it into an I am or an I have statement, then we shift the energy in the body and find the fears that are connected to it. And we work through those fears so that we can get to 100% belief. So we're called Believe Crew because ultimately we're working with limiting beliefs and the beliefs that are holding us back. And then a crew because we don't do it alone. There's multiple people that are helping each person, because I found for myself that I needed multiple modalities, multiple people, different ways of holding space. Like, just me alone wasn't enough. So it's just one belief at a time. And the problem that comes in. So my husband used to be an addict, and we actually had a podcast for a while about it. And um, what we found was that as we were healing addiction, and the opposite of addiction is not non-addiction, it's actually connection. And
Mm.
so as we were starting to lean into how does he become a non-addict, right? um, Sometimes the same issues would come up again. And I was in a place where I was like hopeless. I felt helpless, like, what in the world can we do? I mean, it's like, what else is there to do? But what I learned through the process is that sometimes the same experiences coming up again and again is actually a blessing because it's the easiest way, especially for us as an entrepreneur. I don't know about you, but many that I know are stubborn
Oh
in a
yeah,
good way,
100%.
right?
Yeah, kind
But
of
then
have
the
to be
same
sometimes.
thing, exactly. But then the same thing can be on the opposite side where we have these stubborn beliefs that we don't want to let go of, or that are, that we need to dig in deep on. And the what I found the blessing is in having something show up again and again. It's the easiest way for us to know there's just more. It's fine. There's just more.
There's a Kevin Smith movie called Dogma, and if you ever watched Dogma, one of the scenes in there, Chris Rock's talking about the difference between beliefs and ideas. Right? Beliefs are so difficult to break because if you believe in something, it's part of your inner core. Like that's just who you are. If you believe it to be true, it absolutely is true. Whereas an idea, we can change an idea, we can shift and modify an idea. Now, you said that you're helping people kind of identify their wants and then helping their wants become their beliefs. You're slowly helping them change what they want to become something that they believe is actually possible. And then, as a team, as a crew, work your way towards doing that. Can you give us some kind of little things you do to kind of help them identify some of those wants? Because I don't know about you, but if you ask me what I want in life, that is probably one of the most difficult questions to really narrow down. It sounds simple, but it's not always easy to answer. How do you help people kind of figure out what they want and then after that, turn them into beliefs?
I love your vulnerability with this because it is actually hard to figure out what we want. And in the beginning, it sounds so easy. Like I should know what I want. I think I know what I want. And maybe the initial thing that we think we know we want, especially as like an entrepreneur, is more customers, more revenue, more, more time off, more freedom, whatever. But what happens is when you actually create space for it and dig in, that's usually not the core want. I know I
Mm-hmm.
had one the other day that came up, and I went to our team with one thing, and then in the end, it was actually something else that I really wanted. And so it is peeling back. There's so many beliefs that we've sort of inherited, or maybe from our parents, where we were trained up to believe that we couldn't have. I mean, think about, just as an example, think about artists and artists that make a living. There's so many people that say, well, you just need to get a traditional job. Well, all
Mm-hmm.
of a sudden you have that belief that conflicts with what you want. And so you don't even know what you want anymore, because what you think you want is in conflict with what you can have. So the basic starting point is just to start believing that it's possible to have these conversations and to talk to people where it's safe to believe that. What people usually say to me is, they're like, you're the first person that I felt comfortable saying out loud what I've been thinking about for a long time. And there's
Mm.
so many people in our circle that if we say what we want to them, their immediate reactions we internalize.
Yeah.
And so the people closest to us don't understand our wants. So I think the most important piece is to say your wants out loud in a space that is safe.
I noticed that with early stage entrepreneurs too, especially the when you're young. I teach a high school course called financial algebra with high school seniors, and I get to teach them all kinds of cool stuff. How to manage your money, investments, do your taxes, buy cars, buy houses, that sort of stuff. But I always throw in the entrepreneurial space in there too, especially because nowadays going to college isn't necessarily the best route to be going, and I always tell them whatever idea they have, whatever goal they want to go to, be very skeptical who you share it with, because they're often going to go to the ones they love the most first, right? I'm going to tell my
Yeah.
mom, I'm going to tell my dad, I'm going to tell my spouse, I'm going to
Yeah.
tell my brother, whatever. And oftentimes those are the people who are going to shoot you down first, not because they don't like you, but because they love you and they know who you are. And they know you're saying you're going to do something. They know who you are. Chances are you're probably not going to do it because you haven't done that in the past. You haven't stuck to it. And so they start to just throw rocks at every single piece of idea that you have. And it's kind of tearing your belief down before it even has a chance to grow at the beginning, right? And so I love the fact that you have a crew here that can take that idea and not like shit on it right off the bat, and then and actually kind of nurture it and give you a chance to grow into something viable. Now, guaranteed what you have as an idea for your business, what it's going to start with, is not what it's going to end up like, right? But that's
Right.
okay. That's okay also. It doesn't mean you have to crap on it at the very beginning. You got, tell me, you have entrepreneurs all the time. Does that happen? I mean, you had a small situation yourself, but as far as their business ideas, does that kind of happen on a normal basis?
Yeah. Yes. And so what happens when I work with clients often is that we uncover something amazing and incredible and bigger than they really ever thought possible. They start doing things that they didn't imagine they could be doing. One of them, for example, was a stay-at-home mom that thought she was looking for a job. And in the end, she created an idea that she started to pitch to investors and asking for several $100,000 with the idea that there was going to be a several $1 million investment with multiple investors. And in the process, we found out that she's not ready. And so all the behind the scenes stuff, who we are, our life partners, the relationships that we're in, it all starts to unravel if we haven't built the foundation. And so who we're called to be and who we're called to become in the process is worth it, but it's
Mhm.
also just this incredible journey. And I love what you're doing and what you're teaching young kids. I mean, we ultimately say that we're raising entrepreneurs because our kids, we say that we're soul schooling. We let them choose what they want to do, but it's more from the perspective of you guys have the tools and resources available to you to create anything, and I'm not going to shut down, any idea that you have. So we have one of our sons is he was in construction for a while, and then he switched to being an author, and he
Mm.
doesn't. He doesn't know that he's not a good speller. Right?
The red
Like,
squiggly line doesn't show up on paper.
no, no, so I think we're raising kids in the generation that I think there's a shift happening, and I want to learn from the next gen. And I'm 44, and I'm in between the two generations. The one that says, "Hey, you need to do it our way because
Yeah.
we know best," and the other one is like, "How in the love world are you guys the right ones to learn from? You don't even know how to do what we're doing, or I mean, you're not listening to us." And I'm more like, I think you guys got this. This is going to be pretty cool.
Oh, I'm right there with you. I'll be 43 this year, and in the education space, AI is one of those big subjects. Some people are like, you need to ban all technology in this space because these kids you're using it to cheat all the time. And on the other side, I'm like, no, you need to bring everything into the classroom. Like all
Right.
these tools got to get used because that's the only thing they're going to be using in the future.
That's right.
It reminds me, we talk about the calculator all the time. Yeah, I remember in high school, my teacher would be like, you can't use a calculator. Well, you think you're going to have a calculator in your pocket everywhere you go? Well,
Yep.
yeah, no, I now have a supercomputer in my pocket everywhere I go, right? Like the times
Yep.
have changed. I love that you're doing that. Let me talk about your ideal client here. Who is that ideal entrepreneur that you would love to work with in Believe Crew?
So our ideal entrepreneur is a visionary and someone that's in a partnership, potentially life partner, business partner, that knows that they want to create something from a space of vision and alignment and cares about the soul side of doing work. Like what I mean by that is if I if I come into teams and I start working with employees and not the visionary business owner, then the team starts to leave. Because if
Mm-hmm.
they get clear on what they want and the business owner doesn't get clear on what they want, there's usually an awkward misalignment. So for us, the work that we do is primarily only with the visionaries, the leaders, the families, the partners, the people that are the stakeholders. That culture and that vision needs to be set from the top, and getting them out of the business. I lived and worked with a visionary business owner, and I can tell you that we were way more productive and profitable when he wasn't around. And it's not because we didn't value him and his idea, but his vision was enough. Literally,
Mm-hmm.
his vision was big enough for us to create work as a team for a very long time. And he just needed to pop in occasionally, be available for a really good idea. And so I think if we can get more visionary business owners in the space of the visionary and leading the business, that's my goal.
I love that. I mean, Michael Gerber's book, The E-Myth, is one of those
Mhm.
great examples. Those three different types, right? I think he had the entrepreneur, the CEO, like the visionary, the manager, and the employer, the technician, right? And each of them are vital to the business, but they can definitely bump heads along the way if they're not organized correctly or structured correctly. So I love that, having the visionaries. You talked about kind of separating things a little bit differently. I've always heard that when you're designing your life, you should design the life that you want first, and then the business
Yes.
around it
Yes.
versus the other way around. Oftentimes people start
100%.
trying with the business and then try to manage a life around a business. It doesn't work out that way. I know, I've been there myself. uh, what do you think is probably one of the most overlooked things that business owners have to go through to kind of finally realize that, oops, I've been kind of designing this a little bit backwards?
What I hear most of the time is that people say, "You don't understand, Jamie. I need the money. I need
Yeah.
to create this first, and then I can create the dream." And what I've understood after being in business and starting multiple businesses is that all businesses are difficult to start. There's a challenge in each business that you start, and you're going to learn something along the way. There's a reason you're called to a certain business, and whoever you're supposed to become is in that future business, often not in the one you're trying to start and or trying to make money in. Does that make sense? Like if we
Yeah.
come, it's a fear-based reason to be doing business. And just I understand it's not the way we're trained. We're brought up to learn in an educational system that creates employees, and we're not trained on how to be entrepreneurial. The idea of a 9 to 5, I never saw that in my parents. I mean, they came home and they went snow plowing after that. Like, and my mom was drawing houses at the kitchen table. I mean, and she said to me, she said, "Jamie, if you love what you do, you'll never work a day in your life." And so I just think it's a total different mentality, but it's also a very, very important mentality that if you create the life you want first, at least in your mind, and then design the business because we're called to go somewhere. We have gifts and we've been given those gifts and talents for a reason. And if we don't live our life, I don't know, I can't speak to the people that, that sell the hustle culture. I can just tell you that my parents created amazing businesses, but then my mom died.
Yeah.
Like
Sorry.
if well, it was a learning experience for all of us. Like
Mhm.
if we're not living in our design and there's something that is emotionally, our physical health suffers, our emotional health suffers, and so I don't think it's how we're designed to be.
Yeah, that saying though kind of gets twisted, I think, a little bit. If you enjoy what you do, you won't work a day in your life.
Yes.
You got to
It's
understand
work.
the work is still there. You just actually
Yes.
like doing it. It doesn't feel like you're
Yes.
working every day. So,
Mhm.
work doesn't go away. It's kind of the same
No.
idea as a passive business. There's still work that's involved for you to
Mhm.
have that income coming in. It's just a different kind of work, and how you structure it, it's going to be completely different. But if you do it correctly, if you design the life you want and then you build a business around it, then things are going to kind of work out in your favor eventually. Now, I'm always a fan of definitely having a mentor, a coach, somebody to kind of help you remain accountable along the way. If people want to reach out to you, they want to find out more about Believe Crew, about designing their life, about stopping that whole being busy and start working on productivity and enjoying what they're doing, how can they do that?
Well, I would love to connect with them. I'm on LinkedIn at Jaime White, which is actually very plain vanilla. So Believe Crew JW is actually how you can find me on LinkedIn. And then BelieveCrew.com. Our website's in the process of being reworked, but it's still a way to get a hold of us. And I absolutely appreciate and love everything that you're sharing. It's 100% spot on.
Thank you. Really appreciate it. I love the energy you have too, by the way. It's great. All right. I have a new batch of 17-year-olds going to be starting here in financial algebra coming soon. There are a lot of entrepreneurs out there that are hustling, that are in the grind, working in their business. Maybe they feel stuck. Maybe they don't know what that next step is going to be. Maybe they're tired of repeating that same year of business over and over again. What's one piece of advice you'd give to entrepreneurs who are feeling just stuck right now?
Mm. So I guess I can share what worked for me is I didn't know what I didn't know. I didn't know that the voices in my head were different than what I was trying to accomplish. And so definitely reaching out to anyone, even if it's not Believe Crew, that's in the coaching industry is a starting place, because there's something like I use Chat GPT as therapy. So I
Yeah.
get that, today we have AI tools that can really help us get out of our heads in different ways. But I didn't know that I was blowing up and hitting everybody around me because I was running into my own walls. So for example, if you're feeling pressure and it's impacting the relationships around you, for me, I was the problem. And that's really hard to admit.
Yeah. Looking in the mirror and saying, oh, wait. I know you didn't do your job. I know you didn't clean your room. I know you didn't do this. But you know what? Ultimately, the buck stops here. At the end of the day, the only one you can control is yourself, your responses and your actions. So, ladies and gents, that goes on you too. If you feel stuck right now, if you need some sort of mentorship, a group of people, entrepreneurs, where you're not going to feel that judgment, you just want to be able to express your ideas, maybe get some good feedback and help you really figure out what you want to design that life. Drop by BelieveCrew.com, BelieveCrew.com. Have Jamie and her team, and we met Kevin behind the scenes, but he sounded like a little robot, so we couldn't let him on the air. But I'm sure Jamie and the team are going to be able to help you guys figure out what it is you want to do, and at least have a crew there behind you, pushing you in the direction that you want to go. And BelieveCrew.com. Jamie, thank you very much for being on the podcast today. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll catch you guys on the next one. Peace. And we're out.
It's over. Go home.
Is your business in need of marketing? Try starting a podcast, but not just any podcast. Podcast like a pro. We can show you how to take your business from being invisible to becoming a brand people trust. Go to www.businessbros.biz to get started.